Most people never noticed this iconic Andy Griffith Show scene. When you think of the Andy Griffith Show, you think of simpler times, when morals were plain, small communities were pleasant and quiet, and your neighbors always had a grin on their face. Doors were left unlocked in the fictitious town of Mayberry, North Carolina. Neighbors helped one another out, and officers were essentially simply part of the landscape. Here are some facts that will take you through the magnificence of the 50s program, the disagreements among the cast, and even where the performers ended up. Andy punched a wall and broke his hand. Andy Griffith struck a wall in despair during shooting the second season, breaking his hand. His hand needed extensive bandaging. To explain the injuries, the program said that Sheriff Taylor was injured while apprehending some crooks. Coming out. Jim openly came out as homosexual in 2013 and married his 38-year partner. I'm 82 and he's in his 60s, so we've been together for 38 years, and I'm not ashamed of people knowing. It's just that it was such a personal thing I didn't tell anybody, he said. Andy and Don were pals for life. Daniel Device's book, Andy and Don, The Making of a Relationship and a Classic American TV Show, describes their relationship. On the set, there was a lot of mocking and practical jokes, but Don and Andy remained close friends. The two guys had many interests. They were reared in poverty in the South and had to grow up amid bullies. It was the Great Depression at the time. Andy was raised in North Carolina, whereas Don was raised in West Virginia. Fame was a long shot for both of them. Andy played pranks on the cast. Don Knotts had a crazy demeanor in most of his performances, yet he was really calm and cool in real life. Andy had a knack for upsetting his friend's serene demeanor. Andy's jokes did not simply target Don. Andy George Goober Lindsay was awakened from his snooze by scattering duck guts throughout the room. Pranks worked both ways. The cast bronzed Andy's moccasins, which they handed to him at the conclusion of the season. It was a reward for being such a good sport and putting up with the prank. Andy could tell a joke, but he could also be taken in by one. The close bond on set ensured that the actors stayed cordial throughout the show's run, avoiding any on-set competition and bad blood. The opening credits. Even those who don't remember the show's characters' names remember the opening titles for its down-home, informal atmosphere. What many people don't realize is that Opie never really tossed the rock into the sea. Opie was unable to reach the water, and the photo of the rock was a retake. The rock was thrown by a crew member, and the cameraman captured it. If you look carefully, you can see a second stone being hurled behind the first. Andy Taylor and Helen Crump sitting in a tree. They played a couple on the program, but the story didn't end there. Andy Griffith and Anita Corso allegedly ended their relationship off-screen as well. The only problem was that he was married at the time. Congratulations on defying Hollywood cliches. Caught in the act. A crew member disguised up as a waiter and served supper to Andy's hotel room as part of one of the cast's numerous pranks. The only issue was that he had discovered Andy and Anita in an intimate situation. That's a major miscalculation. Helen Crump wasn't supposed to be a show regular. Helen Crump was given a peculiar moniker when she appeared on the program since it was meant to be a one-time performance. Anita Corso ended up providing a wonderful performance and developing a bond with Andy Griffith, which was enough to make her a regular role. Opie and Andy's characters were around before the show premiered. Although the Andy Griffith Show did not premiere until October 1960, the characters of Andy and Opie originally appeared on Make Room for Daddy in February 1960. Danny Thomas produced both performances. The operator who never slept or went home. On the episode, Sarah worked as a phone operator. Her last name was never given, and she always looked to be on duty. Even though she was never seen on camera, her voice was unique enough that everyone knew it was her. Andy's house address is still a mystery. Several addresses for Andy's residence were provided throughout the series. While the Taylors never relocated, Aunt Bee informed someone in one episode that their address is 332 Maple Road, while Barney tells an investigator that Andy's home is 24 Elm Street. An old Southern phrase. Here's a nice history lesson. There's an ancient Southern expression, "that's the time," that Andy uses on the program many times. The ancient adage has various basic connotations such as good and okay, as well as that's the right thing to do. Griffith used it as a subtle way to include his Southern roots into the program. Andy owned 50% of The Andy Griffith Show. When Sheldon Leonard and Danny Thomas came up with the idea for his program, Andy favored a film career over a TV one. He'd recently completed A Face in the Crowd and No Time for Sergeants and decided to give it a chance if he could get 50% ownership of the program that would bear his name and reputation. They agreed, and he ended up owning half the rights to the program. Andy Griffith's personal wealth was believed to be $35 million at the time of his death. Opening of each episode. From the beginning of each episode, every fan of The Andy Griffith Show is acquainted with the pond. But Andy and Opie weren't the only stars that visited the pond. The titles rolled before the start of each episode of The Andy Griffith Show, which depicted Andy and Opie with fishing poles and strolling along the edge of a pond. The pond, however, is not in North Carolina, where the show's village of Mayberry is based. It's actually the pond located in Franklin Canyon Park in the heart of Los Angeles. The region is directly below Studio City and the CBS Studio Center, so it stands to reason that the park has been setting for several television series and films. Star Trek, That Girl, Bonanza, and Wonder Woman are a few of these undertakings. However, only one other famous fisherman visited the same pond as Andy and Opie. Mark Twain is his name. Actually, his name's Kevin McCarthy. He did, however, portray Mark Twain in a 1961 episode of The Rifleman called The Shattered Idol. Twain visits the Upper Franklin Canyon Reservoir to reflect on life during the episode. A fishing rod bobs in the water as he sits.